Most visitors to Athens head almost instinctively for the Acropolis, the site where Athens began. From the Acropolis you can see virtually all of modern-day Athens spread out below. The word Acropolis refers to the upper fortified portion of an ancient Greek city. Greek cities were usually founded around a defensive piece of high ground, and the Acropolis in Athens is no exception. As you toil up the slopes of the Acropolis, past the souvenir shops, freelance guides and refreshment stalls, you are aware of the mighty presence of the Propylaea, meaning elaborate entrance in Greek. It was designed by the architect Menescles and constructed in 437 to 432 BC. The Propylaea sits on uneven terrain, on a wedge-shaped piece of the rock whose animalities governed the irregularities of the building itself. It is composed of a central building and two lateral wings. The colonnades along the west and east sides each had a row of Doric columns, while two rows of Ionic columns divided the central corridor into three parts. The ceiling of the Propylaea had coffers with painted decoration and a perforated simmer around the roof. To the right of the entrance is the little Ionic temple of Athena Nike, dedicated to Athena Parthenon, Athena Polias and Athena Victorious. The temple was built around 420 BC by the architect Callicrates. In Mycenaean times there was evidently a small shrine here. Some books say that it was from this spot that Aegeus kept watch for his son Perseus when he returned from Crete after slaying the Minotaur. Also built in about 420 BC is the Erechtheion. It replaced an older temple of which only foundation stones remain. Pericles initiated the construction of this temple. It has a prostasis on the east side, a monumental propylon on the north, and the famous porch of the Caryatids on the south. The main temple was divided into two sections, dedicated to the worship of the two principal gods of Attica, Athena and Poseidon Erechtheus. Easily the most recognizable feature of the Acropolis is the Parthenon. It is a temple to Athena in the Doric style, and the result of over 4 centuries of refinement in Greek temple architecture. Doric temples were built to rigid standards as to the number of columns and other dimensions, with small refinements introduced for newer temples over time. The Parthenon is the most important and characteristic monument of ancient Greek civilization to this day. It was built from 447 to 438 BC, and the sculptural decoration was completed in 432 BC. There are 8 Doric columns on the ends instead of the usual 6, and 17 columns down the long sides. Even the roof tiles were made of marble. The centre of this monument once held a massive statue of Athena. The 2 pediments of the temple are decorated with mythological scenes. The east, above the building's main entrance, shows the birth of Athena, and the west, the fight between Athena and Poseidon for the city of Athens. Only fragments survive of the pedimental figures of the Parthenon today. The Parthenon was built to last, and was more or less intact up until 1687, when the Venetians and the Turks were fighting for possession of the Acropolis. The Turks were using the Parthenon as a powder magazine, and hit by a Venetian mortar blew the building in two. The south slope of the Acropolis played a significant role in the artistic, spiritual and religious activity of ancient Athens. Important public buildings were erected in the area. the Odeon of Pericles, the sanctuary and theatre of Dionysos, the Stoa of Eunumerus, and the Odeon of Herodes Atticus. The Odeon of Herodes Atticus was the third Odeon to be built in Athens, after the Odeon of Pericles and that of Agrippa. It was erected by Herodes in memory of his wife Regilla, who died in AD 160. It is shaped as a semicircular theatre, with a radius of 38 metres, and could seat around 5,000 people. The facade, 28 metres high, was massive. The wall of the skene was lavishly decorated with architectural elements. The Odeon was destroyed during the invasion of the Herulae, who also destroyed most of the city's monuments in AD 267. No trace has been preserved of the 5th century theatre of Dionysos, which must have been simple in form, with a few rows of wooden and stone seats. The preserved ruins belong to the monumental theatre built by Lycurgus. The permanent skene, or stage, was then constructed, extending it to the width of the orchestra. After its destruction by Sulla in 86 BC, the theatre and skene were rebuilt. The whole area of the Acropolis is teeming with ancient monuments. The Agora was the heart of ancient Athens, the focus of political, commercial, administrative and social activity, the religious and cultural centre, and the seat of justice. In the years 1953 to 1956, the Stoa of Attalus was reconstructed to become a museum. Between 1972 and 1975, further restoration and preservation work were carried out. The area was cleared of vegetation, and the roof of the temple was repaired in 1978. The temple of Hephaestus, known as Thesion, is Doric. It crowns the hill of Colonus Agorius and is the most prominent and better preserved monument of the Agora.